They say marriage gets easier over time. Maybe that's true. Or maybe you just get used to the silence. My name's David Miller. I'm 38 years old. Senior project manager for a construction firm. And I used to think I had life figured out. A solid job. A nice house on a quiet street. A wife who smiled when I walked through the door. 7 years married to Laura, the woman I once swore I'd grow old with. Back then, we were fire and gravity. Everything pulled us together. Now, we're routine, comfortable, predictably safe. And if you ask most people, they'll tell you that's a good thing. They'll say passion fades and stability takes its place. But sometimes stability isn't peace. Sometimes it's just sleepwalking. Our mornings always began the same. I'd grind the coffee beans while she scrolled her phone at the counter. She'd ask about my schedule. I'd ask what she had planned for the day. And we'd both answer in half sentences. Little polite exchanges that sounded like conversation but weren't. It was communication without connection. The kind that fills the air, but not the heart. She said she was busy lately, but never said with what. Some freelance design work, she claimed. Organizing things around the house. It sounded normal enough, until it didn't. There's a kind of intuition that creeps in quietly. Like the feeling you get when you realize you've left the stove on. A low hum of awareness that something, somewhere, is off. For me, it started small. Her phone always face down, always on silent. She used to toss it on the couch or kitchen table without a thought. Now, it followed her everywhere. Like a secret she couldn't set down, and she smiled differently. Not often. But once in a while, I'd catch her grinning at something on that screen. A kind of soft, private smile I hadn't seen in years. The kind that used to be mine. I told myself it was nothing. Everyone changes. We all find new rhythms. But when comfort turns into distance, you start to notice the cold in the spaces that used to be warm. Evenings were quiet. 2. Dinner at 7. Netflix hum in the background. Her curled on one end of the couch. Me on the other. We'd laugh at the same moments. Comment on the same scenes. But never really look at each other. She'd yawn halfway through the movie. Kiss my cheek, good night. And disappear upstairs while I stayed behind. Pretending to finish the episode. In truth, I was staring at the dark reflection in the TV, wondering when exactly love had turned into habit. And yet, I kept telling myself that this was normal. That maybe this was just what marriage looked like after a few years quieter. Slower. More practical. I believed that. I wanted to believe that. But belief doesn't stop the cracks from forming. It just delays when you notice them. One night, I reached across the bed while she slept beside me. My hand brushed empty sheets. She'd rolled away to the edge again. A gulf of space between us that felt wider than any argument we'd ever had. I stared at the ceiling and thought about how strange it is how a house can be full of furniture, full of memories, full of another person's breathing, and still feel empty. They say every storm begins with a shift in the wind, a change so subtle you almost miss it. For me, it was that moment, that silence, that realization that the woman lying next to me wasn't really with me anymore. I thought stability meant safety. I didn't realize it was just the calm before collapse. It started on a Thursday, one of those ordinary afternoons that you never realize will split your life into before and after. My client meeting had been canceled last minute. Some emergency on their end. So instead of fighting rush hour traffic and walking through the door at my usual 6:15, I turned the key in the lock at 3:45. The house smelled like vanilla candles and coffee. Familiar. Comforting scents. But there was something else beneath it, faint. Sharp. 4 and 5. Cologne. Not mine. At first, I thought maybe she'd cleaned. Maybe used a new air freshener. But then Laura's voice came from the kitchen. High and tight. "You're home early," she said. Smiling too quickly. Too wide. Her tone was cheerful. But her eyes flickered surprise. Maybe even something else. Relief. I told her the meeting was canceled. She nodded, pretending to be relaxed. Then reached for her laptop. I caught the soft click of it closing. The screen going black before I could see what she'd been working on. Just organizing some files, she said. Voice light. Casual. Too smooth. I nodded. Tried to match her calm. But something about the whole exchange felt slightly crooked, like a picture hanging just a little off-center, upstairs. I loosened my tie and headed toward our bedroom. Everything looked normal. But as I passed the guest room, a flicker of white caught my eye, the bed perfectly made. Crisp. White sheets pulled tight across the mattress. Folded corners like something out of a hotel catalog. That stopped me. The morning before, those sheets had been blue. Old. Soft. Familiar. The same ones we'd had for years. Why would she change them, and why so suddenly? In the middle of the week, when no one had been visiting, I stood there for a long moment, just staring at that bed. My brain tried to rationalize maybe she was spring cleaning. Maybe she'd spilled something. Maybe she just felt like redecorating. But beneath all those excuses, another thought whispered, the kind of thought you don't want to hear in your own house. When I went downstairs again, she was in the laundry room, loading the old blue sheets into the washer. She jumped slightly when she saw me in the doorway. "Oh," she said, hand over her heart. "You scared me." "Didn't mean to," I replied, keeping my voice casual. "Just wondering why you're washing the guest room sheets. We haven't used that bed in months." She froze for half a beat too long before answering. "Just felt like they needed it," she said quickly. I was bored. Bored. That's what she called it. I nodded, smiled, walked away, but inside, something twisted. Not anger yet, not pain, just confusion and a gnawing sense that the story didn't fit. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling again. The same ceiling that had listened to every one of our unspoken words. I kept replaying the moment, the cologne, the laptop snapping shut, the spotless guest bed. There's a kind of silence that feels heavier than noise. The kind that presses down on you because you know the truth is hiding somewhere underneath it. I told myself I was overthinking, that I was tired, paranoid, maybe just insecure. After all, she hadn't done anything wrong. Not that I could prove, but deep down, I already knew. I just didn't have the courage to admit it yet, because betrayal never walks in screaming. It doesn't announce itself, it tiptoes in. Wearing your wife's perfume. By Saturday morning, the unease had calcified into something sharper. Suspicion. Laura announced over breakfast that she and her sister were going outlet shopping for the day girls' time. She called it. Flashing that same bright, rehearsed smile. She said they'd be gone till evening. I nodded, kissed her goodbye, and watched her car disappear down the street. 5 minutes later, I opened my laptop. Within an hour, I'd ordered 3 small security cameras online, same-day delivery. I told myself it wasn't paranoia. It was clarity. If I was wrong, I'd delete everything. If I was right, I needed to know. There's a strange calm that comes with making a decision like that. It's not anger, not fear. It's focus. The kind of focus that says, I'm done guessing. The cameras arrived before lunch. I worked quietly, methodically, like it was just another home project. One to cover the front door, another tucked into the living room, disguised among the decorations Laura's mother gave us for our anniversary. The last one in the upstairs hallway pointed perfectly toward the guest room door. By the time Laura returned at 7, her arms full of shopping bags. The house looked exactly the same. She chatted about sales, about how her sister spent way too much, about traffic on the highway. She laughed easily, almost too easily. I smiled, nodded, asked all the right questions. Inside, I was memorizing every word, every tone, every gesture. That night, I didn't check the cameras. I wanted a full week of data. A week to separate fact from fear. The next few days were ordinary on the surface. Coffee, work, dinner, sleep. But I started noticing new patterns. Laura woke earlier than usual, spent more time getting ready, makeup done carefully. Even on days she said she wasn't leaving the house. She wore perfume before laundry day. Her phone buzzed more often but never rang. And each time, it lit up. She smiled. That small, secret smile that didn't belong to me anymore. She'd glance at the screen, type something quick, then lock it and slide it face down. I'd ask who it was, pretending to sound casual. Oh, just my sister, she'd say. Or, the neighborhood group chat. You know, the one about the new park opening. Always casual, always harmless, But there's a look a woman has when she's texting someone she actually wants to hear from. It's not the look she gives her husband. I started counting those moments, tiny flashes of something intimate, foreign, and deliberate. Each one a pinprick in the fragile balloon of my denial. Every evening, after she fell asleep, I'd lie awake listening to her steady breathing. The sound used to comfort me. Now it sounded like proof that she could sleep so peacefully while my mind twisted in knots. Still, I said nothing. I didn't confront her. I didn't accuse. I just waited. Observed. Collected data. Maybe it's the project manager in me. The need for evidence. Documentation. Measurable truth. Or maybe it was something darker, the part of me that wanted to watch the lie unravel from the inside out. Each day that passed, Laura seemed lighter, brighter, more radiant, like she'd discovered some secret source of joy I wasn't part of. And I became the shadow beside her. The silent witness to something I could feel but not yet prove. I told myself I was just gathering clarity. But clarity and obsession look a lot alike when you're living inside them. Still, I kept watching, kept waiting, until the evidence found me. And when it did, there would be no going back. Friday night. The house was dark, quiet, peaceful, at least on the surface. Laura had gone to bed early. Claiming a headache, I told her I'd stay up and finish a few work emails. She kissed my cheek, smiled softly, and walked upstairs. I waited until I heard the bedroom door close. Waited longer still, until her breathing upstairs fell into its familiar, steady rhythm, the sound of sleep. Then I opened my laptop. For 6 days, I'd resisted the temptation to check the recordings. I'd told myself to wait for a full week, to make sure whatever I felt wasn't just paranoia. But that night, something in me snapped. I couldn't take the not knowing anymore. I logged into the cloud storage. My pulse, a steady drum in my ears. Folder after folder neatly labeled by date and time. I opened Monday's first. Nothing. Laura moved through the house like normal. Doing laundry. Watching TV. Making lunch. Just ordinary life. Tuesday. Wednesday. Same thing. By Thursday morning, I started feeling ridiculous. Like I'd turned myself into some jealous fool spying on his wife for no reason. I almost closed the laptop. Almost. But I clicked Thursday 1000 a.m. Anyway, at 1047, a car pulled into the driveway. Not a delivery truck, not a friend's SUV. A sleek black sedan I didn't recognize. The driver stepped out tall. Maybe mid-30s. Confident posture. Jeans. Fitted shirt. The kind of man who looks like he's never been told no. He walked up to my front door with the ease of someone who belonged there. And before he could even knock, Laura opened the door. I paused the video, my hand hovering over the mouse. Part of me wanted to stop, to delete everything, to protect whatever illusion still remained, but I didn't. I pressed play. Laura smiled, that soft, a glowing smile I hadn't seen in years. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him. It wasn't a friendly hug. It was something else. Familiar. Intimate. I felt the breath leave my lungs. She led him inside. Poured wine, the expensive bottle I'd been saving for our anniversary next month. They sat close on the couch. Laughing. Touching. Leaning into each other like two people who'd rehearsed this a dozen times before. No hesitation. No guilt. Just comfort. Routine. At 1123. She kissed him. Slow. Certain. Deliberate. I watched it happen in absolute silence. It wasn't the kiss that broke me. It was how ordinary it looked. Like they'd done it before. Like this was just another Thursday morning to them. My chest felt hollow. My hands numb. The room around me faded until there was only the soft glow of the screen, a private theater showing the death of my marriage. I didn't stop the footage, though I wanted to. I forced myself to watch as they moved from the couch toward the hallway, leaving a trail of clothes behind them. At 1130, they disappeared into the guest room, the one with the fresh white sheets, the ones she'd changed so carefully. The camera in the hallway showed only shadows moving beneath the door. But that was enough. My heart pounded like I'd run a marathon. But I couldn't look away, because this was truth undeniable. Tim stamped. Documented truth. At 1215. The man left, fully dressed, hair slightly messy. Laura followed him to the door. Wearing only my robe, The blue one I'd bought her for Christmas. They kissed goodbye on the doorstep. She watched him drive away. And then, as if nothing had happened, she turned, cleaned everything, stripped the bed, started the washer, showered, changed back into her casual home clothes. By 1:00 p.m., my wife was once again the woman I thought I knew, standing in our kitchen, scrolling her phone, waiting for me to come home to the lie. I sat there in the dark bathroom for a long time, staring at the screen, every nerve in my body on fire. Then I clicked save. I took screenshots, her face, his car, the timestamps, every moment labeled neatly, evidence. It felt mechanical, almost professional, like I was logging data for a project instead of documenting the collapse of my life. When I was done, I closed the laptop and sat in silence. The house was still. Laura's breathing upstairs steady and peaceful. I could hear the faint hum of the refrigerator, the soft ticking of the hallway clock, the small domestic noises of a home pretending to be normal. I realized I hadn't just lost a wife that day. I'd lost the illusion that love protects you, that good men are somehow immune to betrayal, that kindness guarantees loyalty, that if you work hard and stay faithful, life will play fair. It doesn't. Love doesn't shield you. It blinds you. It makes you believe that honesty is a given, that trust is forever. But forever is a word best left for fairy tales. That night, sitting in the half-light of a home I no longer recognized, I made a silent promise. If this was how my marriage ended, it wouldn't end quietly. Not this time. By Monday morning, the shock had burned away, leaving something colder in its place. Not sadness, not even anger, just focus, clean, sharp, and merciless. Laura stood in the kitchen pouring coffee when I told her, "I've got to fly to Chicago for a week," I said casually. New client presentation. Last minute. For just a split second, before she could hide it, something flickered across her face. Relief. Her shoulders loosened. Her eyes brightened. And then, just as quickly, she masked it with concern. "Oh no. That's so sudden," she said, her voice warm, but her hand twitching toward her phone. "You'll be gone the whole week." I nodded. "Yeah. Might even stay through the weekend if it runs long." She smiled softly, reached across the counter to touch my hand, a performance of affection that would have fooled anyone who didn't know better. But I did. And I watched those fingers, the ones that used to trace my jawline, tremble with barely contained excitement. That was when I knew the trap would work. I spent Monday and Tuesday laying the groundwork. Quietly called my boss. Told him I'd be working remotely for a few days. Booked a cheap motel on the other side of town under a different name. Packed a suitcase so it looked convincing. Tuesday night, I pretended to pack for the trip. Laura leaned against the doorway, smiling faintly. "You sure you've got everything?" "Yeah," I said. "You'll enjoy the peace and quiet." She laughed, that same light, effortless sound that had once melted me. Now it just echoed. Wednesday morning was gray and drizzling when I loaded my suitcase into the car. I kissed her goodbye on the porch. Her lips were cold. Or maybe mine were. By the time I reached the end of our street, she was already pulling out her phone. I saw it in the rearview mirror. That tiny screen lighting up her face, her first move the moment she thought I was gone. I didn't drive to the airport. I drove 15 minutes across town to the motel, paid in cash, checked into a bland beige room that smelled faintly of bleach and loneliness. I set up the laptop on the desk, logged into the live feeds. There she was in our house, pacing the living room with her phone pressed to her ear, animated, smiling, her eyes bright with anticipation. Even through the silent footage, I could see it, the thrill, the energy, the unmistakable pulse of someone planning a secret she thought was safe. I watched her that evening. She ordered Thai food, our usual order, but for one, she ate while watching TV, texting between bites. Later, she showered, changed into pajamas, and went to bed at a reasonable hour. The image of an ordinary wife waiting for her husband to return from a trip, but I knew better. The performance was for me, for the illusion of us. Thursday morning, I was up before dawn, coffee cooling beside the laptop as I monitored the feed. At 8:00 a.m., she woke, showered longer than usual, put on makeup carefully, precisely foundation, lipstick, mascara, the kind of effort she hadn't given me in months. Then came the dress, dark green, cinched at the waist, Expensive. I remembered the tag still hanging when she bought it. She'd said it was for a special occasion. I guess this was it. At 1000 a.m., she tidied the living room, poured wine into 2 glasses, checked the clock, and glanced toward the front window like a performer waiting for her cue. At 1030, my phone buzzed, motion detected on the driveway camera. The same car, the same man, the same confidence in his stride. Laura opened the door before he could knock. She pulled him inside, kissed him like she'd been starving. I watched them for 15 minutes. No more. Long enough to confirm everything I needed. Then I closed the laptop, and in that moment, something inside me changed. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt precision, and precision is far more dangerous than anger. I stood, grabbed my car keys, and walked out of that motel room without hesitation, because for the first time in months, my hands were steady, and my plan was already in motion. When I pulled into the driveway, the house looked exactly as it always did: quiet, calm, ordinary. But inside, everything had already ended. I walked through the front door without a sound. The air was heavy with a scent I didn't recognize anymore: wine, perfume, and deceit. Upstairs, I heard movement, laughter, the rhythm of something that once belonged to me. I climbed the stairs slowly, every step deliberate, every heartbeat steady. I didn't feel rage anymore, just clarity. I reached the guest room and turned the handle. Locked. So I opened it, and there they were, 2 people caught in the kind of truth that doesn't need words. For a second, time froze. No one breathed. Then he scrambled, stammering, reaching for his clothes. Laura gasped, her face pale, hands trembling. The sheet clutched against her chest, like it could protect her from reality. But I didn't shout. I didn't curse. I didn't even move toward them. I just looked at them, really looked, and let the silence do what words never could. When he tried to speak, I simply pointed toward the door. Get out. He hesitated, maybe thinking I'd let him explain, maybe thinking he still had some kind of dignity left. He was wrong. I grabbed him by the arm and shoved him toward the hallway. He tripped, half-dressed, scrambling for his pants as he stumbled down the stairs. I opened the front door and threw him out shirtless, shaking, humiliated. The door slammed behind him. The sound echoed like the final period at the end of a long, cruel sentence. When I turned back, Laura stood on the stairs, tears streaking her face, a sheet wrapped tight around her body. David, please, she whispered. It's not what you think. I pulled out my phone, opened the video, and pressed play. Her voice filled the hallway, her laughter, her kiss, her lies. She watched herself in horror. The timestamp glowed on the screen like a scar that would never fade. I looked at her once, steady and calm. Pack your things, I said quietly, and leave. She begged, pleaded, reached for me. But I stepped back. I didn't raise my voice. I said, I didn't have to. The truth did all the talking. She left 20 minutes later. The door closed behind her, slow, final, echoing through the empty house. And just like that, silence returned. But this time, it wasn't peace. It was the sound of everything I'd ever believed, breaking clean in half. The divorce moved fast, cleaner and colder than I ever expected. The evidence was airtight. Dates, times, faces. Every lie she told now carried a timestamp. Her lawyer tried to soften the blow, said she was confused, lonely, emotionally neglected. Mine didn't even need to argue. He just pressed play. 30 seconds of footage, and the courtroom went silent. By spring, it was done. The papers were signed. The accounts divided. The house legally mine. And just like that, 7 years of marriage were reduced to a single envelope. Laura's world collapsed the way a lie always does, slowly. Then all at once, her parents refused to take her in. Friends stopped returning her calls. And the man she'd risked everything for, he vanished. No goodbye. No closure. Just gone. I didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. Winning doesn't feel like victory when it comes from ruin. But I survived it, and that was enough. I started small. Therapy, once a week. Long drives without music. Early mornings at the gym. I learned how to breathe again. How to take up space without guilt. Eventually, I sold the house. Too many ghosts in the walls. Too many memories in the paint. My new apartment is smaller, but brighter floor-to-ceiling windows. Clean lines. Quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't hide secrets anymore. People think healing comes from noise, from confrontation, closure, revenge. But I learned something different. Silence can destroy. Yes. But if you face it long enough, silence can heal the same way it once destroyed. A year later, the dust has finally settled. I live in a different city now, smaller place. Cleaner air. Simpler life. The mornings are quiet. But not empty anymore. There's peace and routine again. Coffee. Sunrise. Silence that doesn't ache. I still wear the scars. But they don't define me. They remind me. Remind me of what I survived and who I became because of it. I'm dating again. Slowly. Carefully. Her name's Rachel. She knows the whole story, not the filtered version. Not the "it just didn't work out" lie. The truth. And somehow, she didn't flinch. For the first time, honesty doesn't feel like a risk. It feels like freedom. Looking back, I used to think revenge was about hurting someone, about balance, punishment, power. But that's not what it is. Revenge, when done right, isn't destruction. It's reclamation. It's taking back the parts of yourself that someone tried to break. I didn't destroy Laura. She destroyed herself. All I did was stop pretending not to see it. They say time heals everything. That's not true. Time just gives you enough distance to see the truth without shaking. Peace doesn't arrive as a gift. You build it brick by brick, boundary by boundary. And when you finally get there, you realize it was never about them. It was always about you. Brothers, if you were me, would you have forgiven her? Or done what I did? Expose the truth and walk away with your dignity. Tell me below. And remember, peace isn't given. It's earned. If this story spoke to you, share your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe for more real stories where men rise stronger than betrayal.